Mike asked me to go through a little bit of an overview. As a little more of an introduction, I guess for the last 10 years, I've been the range master and lead firearms instructor for our academy. We have an 800 officer department, and I'm responsible for handgun, patrol rifle, and shotgun training for our agency. We've been working with the SIRT for a while. We've kind of already done what Mike was just talking about, doing the evaluation of the effectiveness of the SIRT and how it might lead into an academy setting for our in-service and or our recruits. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we've been doing. This is a free flow. I don't want to sit here and lecture all day. Throw out questions, bullshit flags, I'll take them. Whatever you think, please don't hit me though. So we'll just kind of run through a few things, give you a few ideas. The big thing about this is kind of getting everybody thinking. Open-mindedness goes a long way here. My initial thought on the SIRT about 3 years ago when Don was showing it to me is it was kind of stupid. That's my honest opinion there. As a firearms guy, I go, what's a laser gun going to do for me? It really didn't accomplish anything. So I go, yeah, okay, thanks, Don. Cool. One more of your little trinkets and toys. Saw it again about 2 years ago. Tried to actually have an open mind. Got a T&E, and we started trying to play with it a little bit and see how it might fit into actual firearms training for our academy. And with that, we actually were pleasantly surprised. We right away started playing with some remedial shooters, people that struggle all the time, and they were improving by leaps and bounds. And so we started looking into it a little bit more. Biggest philosophy here is be open-minded for different training philosophies, evaluate them, see if they work on the street, not on a flat range. I'm big into not playing with stuff that isn't practical to what we can do on the street. A lot of guys have all these cool, funky little things that only work under resting heart rate on a flat range, and we don't like to train that way. Open-minded about curriculum. One thing I've done is kind of a mandate on myself. I make a manual for our academy, and I date it intentionally. So it require myself to go through and reevaluate curriculum every 2 years to make sure that I'm keeping up, because my philosophy is if I'm not keeping up, then I shouldn't be in my job. Philosophy on firearms training, biggest thing there is we like to look at the officer-involved shootings. We have all these officer-involves on the cameras now everywhere. So let's look at how the shooting occurs and build backwards, and actually have our training revolve around what everybody's doing on the street and human nature. And throwing that common sense in there that we can't figure out how to teach. So in 2011, we got our test group, started doing some in-service testing with the officers coming in. Mainly a lot of remedial, a little bit of in-service classroom work. We started seeing some positive results with that. So for our in-service in 2012, put it right into the curriculum for our lesson plans, where we were doing drills. Start off right on the range. We like to do one-hole drills, kind of evaluate yourself. You're 3 yards away, just easy dot. And we would bring them on first 5 rounds, shoot your 5 rounds, mag out, slide lock back, clear and holster. We take and we'll get into this more, we take the SIRTs right on the range. And we found that is the best result when we do that. We'll do a safety protocol change, bring the SIRT right back onto that firing line, same targets, working on their trigger reset, looking at their slashes usually, and teaching them to make the dashes with that SIRT. And then after they get some trigger control, switch them back out, and they do 2 more mags of 5, and every one of them improve. Because my philosophy, right, wrong, or indifferent, is trigger control is the most important thing, And I tell the students, once you understand and can master your trigger control, you're a good shooter. And until you can do that, you're not. It's either or. They can make their decision on how they want to approach that. So in 2012, every officer went through SIRT. My favorite positive remark, because I did a debrief after each class, was that fucking laser gun was the best thing that ever happened to my shooting. And this was a bad shooter. And so he was one of those that was going to go buy his own. So very positive feedback that we had. Then biggest undertaking we did was we implemented it with our last recruit class, 43 recruits that we just had. From the beginning, we threw it right into their class. I'm not a fan of putting it in their holsters. We're blue guns, kind of like you guys, I noticed there. I'm a fan of keeping the blue guns. I'm not a fan of throwing it in their holsters every day. I think it will lead to too much horseplay. I'm not a big fan of horseplay with any type of weapon. So more of a doing it in a correct setting. We start out with our classroom. We do 2 4-hour blocks of classroom, initial classroom with our recruits for our firearms, and then we'll branch out from there. Obviously, we went through the draw, trigger control, point shooting. We do a lot of movement offline, and any new techniques we use the SIRT for it. So after our initial teaching, we put a classroom SIRT table, which I'll give you some pictures of those, so that these recruits can, before class, at breaks, during lunch, or after class, they can go up to a protocol station and they can work on, had a station set up where specific guidelines of what they can do there, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a little bit. So we had a classroom SIRT station there. That's an unsupervised with safety protocol. With the recruits, we have our range SIRT station. That's supervised by a firearms instructor at all times. We'll get into that as well. And down on the bottom then, we have a exchange table, which I was starting to talk about, which is also supervised by a firearms instructor, to be able to allow us to go from live to SIRT back and forth on the firing line. And I'm going to throw this out there, being a range master, I'm a safety Nazi. And that's the most important thing for me is how can I make my students better, but we have to be safe about it. And I think we did a pretty dang good job of that. And as Mike would say, his little cracking code stuff. You know, we all have our safety protocols when we use simunitions, right? Everybody uses sims here. We kind of follow that over with any blue gun or SIRT gun. So our rule here is while conducting any training with a SIRT, airsoft, blue gun, or simunitions training weapons, no student, and the big one is, or instructor, will have a loaded firearm on their person. No exception. This is policy applies to all classrooms, ranges, etc. No exceptions. I got the biggest kickback from our firearms instructors. They wanted to have their guns on. They wanted to have my guns on. And at first, we allowed it. Yeah. We allowed it at first, and we had a bad situation with it because we had this table there. We had the students. We had an instructor, very locked on guy. He was doing SIRT, exchange, went back, taught for a while, SIRT, exchange, come back, poof, right into the wall.
Yes. Do you guys have a closed campus where you're working on this? Can your average citizen come walking through with their dog?
No. This isn't an indoor range,
well,
so
even still.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're locked in there.
Correct.
Okay. So you get any looky-loos or walkers
No.
or kids or
No. If we're outdoors, we'll have one person in a vest, and they can't come by the training at all.
check. That's right.
No, they're the only armed person. So that would be my biggest suggestion. We have no exceptions on that anymore, so we don't even take our guns in. We have a mandatory safety brief. This is a version of what you could do. Prior to any range activity, we have a safety brief that we read, regardless of who it is, SWAT, everybody, we all read it through. case anything happens, first thing IA does, they're going to come back. Well, was your safety brief done? Yeah, verbatim, right there. All right, some of our different things that we do kind of evolved with my trying to become more open-minded lately, and targets was the first thing. Well, not really the first thing, but a more recent thing. Wow, that's some bad spelling there. Trying to type in the car wasn't working well. Trying to get the officers in the psychology and the mindset of actually shooting a person versus paper. These are our, I'm afraid to hit it. These are our typical training targets. We don't use a lot of paper anymore. If we do use paper, it's all colored. Trying to keep with that psychology of shooting a person. I think that's the best thing we can do for our officers, because I think you guys know that everybody starts to hesitate out there. But looking at this, shooting at this, you can't follow your rounds too. I can't correct myself. I can't start looking at where I'm hitting, and obviously we're ingraining that they don't follow through when we do that. So we'll take a typical target like this. Whoops. Typical target, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper right in the upper thoracic. We're an upper thoracic agency where this is the only area we want them to shoot. We're not a center mass or rings agency. So they'll shoot whatever they're doing, walk clear range, walk down, lift up the t-shirt, look at their handiwork, spray glue another piece of paper right in there. If they miss outside that 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, just take masking tape, put it on there, pull the shirt down, next relay's up. That one target runs the whole day. Shirts and pants and everything else, all I did is ask officers, hey, when you're cleaning out, instead of taking it to Goodwill, bring it in. I get more stuff than I can ever imagine, because as soon as they went through the first in-service 3 years ago doing these targets, they loved it. Even the old crusty guys that don't want to be there, hate range, they actually kind of enjoyed it. And so they're even bringing stuff in. So it's also a way to make training more positive and fun for the officers. Different drop targets for the outdoor range over here. Talked about looking at the officer involved shooting and working it backwards with a lot of our drills. This is what the target looks like down here with the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Just a few different drills that was a point shooting drill where we tape the sights. We like to tape sights 7 yards and in, forcing them not to depend too much on a front sight. There's a lot of debate in that, obviously, in the industry, front sight versus point shooting. I just kind of took the standpoint of, look at all these officer-involved shootings, talk to the officers. Did you find your sights? Well, shit, no, I didn't have time to do that, because he was only this far away. So if they're not ever finding their sights, in closer shootings, most of the time not finding their sights, why are we forcing our officers to train to do that? Let's just train more on point shooting. And we did a little experiment with last year's in-service where we ran a drill, 5 and 7 yards, sighted shooting, cleared, came back, taped everybody's sights, ran the exact same drill, point shooting strictly, and they improved. I don't know, some psychology thing in there, because they're just, punching out, and they were able to improve. And I don't know if it's trying to line up sights. It was kind of some weird psychology study that I'm not the brainiac to be able to do. But I'd say 80-85% of the shooters improved when they weren't trying to find their sight. Line up front and rear sights.
That's good.
Dave, I had a quick follow-on question.
Yep.
When you're teaching and you're using that methodology, where are you having them direct their attention?
For what?
When they're shooting the SIRT and doing these SIRT drills, are you having them look at the point of impact, or are you having them focus their attention on inwards on how it feels?
No. Generally, if we're going to shoot in the upper thoracic, they'll stare right at the top of the shirt, punch out, and wherever I'm staring is where hopefully, if I have good fundamentals, where my weapon's going to punch out to.
And that kind of goes back to the original, when we preached the, original dry fire, is that we had them go out, do it. They don't know where they're hitting. They know they may be focusing on that front sight. They know it's going click, but they never really have that feedback of where am I recreating the negative, feedback because I'm really staring there versus, and then doing the tap rack afterwards for the Glock users. But at least with this, you can see right away, like, oh God, I'm off left every time. So there's something either in my grip or something I'm doing that you can correct really quick.
Getting them to understand the value of using it, and sometimes that's forcing them to do it, and then all of a sudden there's that light bulb goes off and they go, oh, and then making sure that they understand what the expectation is in the practice. You know, we're not teaching you the tap rack here. We want you to work on some very basic fundamentals, and I can't remember who just said it. I think Jeff said it when he asked the question about, what are you focusing here? Are you getting to feel? And feel to me is critical, particularly when we start talking about managing the trigger. You know, we talked early on about, with the SIRTs, riding the rail initially, you know, so that you know that you're not pulling one way or the other, and then moving off the rail so that you get that good trigger control, rearward motion kind of thing. And having played with the SIRT as much as I have, that's the one thing, that the feel piece, and getting the students to focus on, okay, you're not just up here going bang, 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 bang. We want you to look at it, look at what's moving here, what's not moving when you do that. And once you do that with them, they really understand that. And then now how do you, like you're doing in the classroom, we're not, how do you get them to be able to do that in a classroom in a safe environment, running through the basic protocols? Because let's face it, if it's there and they're doing it in their dorm room and now it's in my classroom and I'm following protocols and I'm doing it, well, now I'm getting more practice that I wouldn't get. And
having different tools to get the job done is what allows you to shortcut the learning process. And that's, and we know you should, what we want, what I say is what I want is a guy who can pull the gun out of his holster with his eyes closed and hit the target if he knows where it is. There's where it is, close my eyes. That's what we want. And we're going to get that? Yeah, no. Okay. But that would be the ideal. So that's why we put sights on guns. so you don't have to be that good. Because we know you can get there. You just fire 60, 70, 80,000 rounds a year, you get pretty good. You don't need sights.
Jumping into our safety portion here, we're a little bit different. Like I said, I'm pretty safety Nazi-ish with firearms, and I literally consider the SIRT a firearm, kind of like a blue gun, Sims gun, everything else, because it looks like a firearm. So safety being the most important thing, we don't allow careless use, obviously. I classify careless use as the light switch, do all this other stuff, and going around all over, especially with people, because you're not going to do that with a live gun. With us, we only have it set with a protocol, so we'll use actually targets like this. We just use this target for anything point shooting because it's similar to what we use. That's what's underneath the shirts. And then if we're working on sighted fire, we just put a little dot on there, and that's where they're going to draw, punch out, and find their front sight to line up to their trigger presses and working on that. That's the only places we allow. I was talking to Mike the other day, as like, you know, the thought of just the average person taking it into their house or wherever place of business and just popping out all the time without a good protocol is, think about if you pop it out, you actually have that live gun on there and punch it through the wall and your kid's on the other side of that door. Or your friend's kid or someone else. So we only have it set up with using targets in certain areas, and we encourage or we require that for the dry fire.
Dave?
Yes.
On the sighted fire, have you played with trying to just like put targets further away and figuring out how to like get more distance out of rooms and such? You know what I mean? So they kind of learn like when they notch point of aim and when they need the sights and all that.
For this one, I use these in the classroom, in which we only had a certain amount of area, so no, not for that. Not for this particular one that we did. Obviously, we have our no live fire. I'm a sign guy. That's the sign we have before any dry fire station. This is our classroom station, so we didn't have a lot of room, so they were just told where to stand for this particular one because this is a recruit classroom, so lots of structure and requirement there. 3 different distinctive drills that they were supposed to do here. Now, if you'll notice, I have a clearing barrel right here. Our protocol is to come up, remove the magazine, lock the slide to the rear, and slide lock back, exchange with SIRT gun. laying the SIRT gun here, or a live gun here, and or recruits actually have blue guns, but we still make them go through that ritual anyways, just to get used to it. So they'll exchange here. This station is working on the draw. So I like them to be able to see themselves. Classroom draw, 1, blue gun. We put the mirror there because I want them to watch themselves in the mirror. Starting off, as it says here, 25% speed. Working on slow motion, making sure there's a smooth draw coming out, accessing the weapon. And then as they get it smooth, then they can continue to go a little bit faster each and every time as they watch themselves in the mirror. Someone else can be at station 2. That one's with the SIRT gun. That's using that same 4-count draw that they did on station 1. This one's just point shooting. We keep the rear sights taped, so they're just punching it out. And working on the trigger control so they can make their dots and not dashes as we go through there. Station 3. Yeah.
Do you do anything to actually encourage them to use that, or do you find that they're motivated to come and do the dry fire?
Well, this is the first class we did it with. So we showed it to them, explained it to them. A few people used it, and then we went to the range the first day, and then they were standing in line waiting to use it because they saw the need for it after the aha moment of on the range of, oh, I really need that trigger control. And so after that, people were using it a lot more. And you could tell the people that have been, or at least I could tell the people that were doing lots of reps with their trigger control. And then some people that were struggling, I go, well, have you been hitting the SIRT table at all? No. And I can tell. I go, so I think that might be a good thing to do.
So the motivation was really coming from the improvement they were seeing in the shooting on the range.
Yeah.
And they could tie that directly to were they doing enough of the dry fire training as well, at least in their heads.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years of running recruit classes, this is the simplest class that we've ever had. Literally day 2 point shooting. Set curriculum, we got through it by 1 o'clock, and I was looking at the other instructors going, and they're going, went too freaking quick. They were just, everybody was punching out and doing a lot of.
You're gonna put yourself out of a job.
So I guess to add more things.
Yeah, we just at the end. And that's a big thing. Everybody thinks, well, you get this SIRT, you're cutting down on ammo, and I'm the opposite. In our administration's right on, where you keep the same ammo, you're just using it smarter, and I can expand and do a lot more things with it. And then that's number 3, station 3 over here is just doing the sighted shooting, a couple different transition and everything else. It was our first go around, obviously trying to figure out what to do with it. It seemed to work pretty good. Might tweak it some, I don't know, but I can't have the distances because we need to have a lot of control. You got a classroom setting, so we just set this in the front corner. Left it there the entire academy setting for them. Now the controversial one. We also put SIRT stations right on the live fire range. This is a dry fire SIRT station, and this is a SIRT exchange table up here off to the side. This is downrange over here. Obviously, the strict safety protocols that we established have to be in place. There's a firearms instructor stationed at this one, and firearms instructor stationed at this one when we're using it.
And just so people know, because the one thing that struck me and struck other people from our academy when they looked at this, the numbers are different. Advantage to us is there are things that can be going on in the range and things that are going on in the gym that can complement each other in that day. So what, I just look at it as,
I can see, doing some certain stuff in the gym,
along with punching and hitting, and and that's where my mind went automatically. And what that does now is that just improves the program, because now it's not just we're integrated the way it should be.
If A19 is a form we fill out as content.
I figured now, I will say we did start out doing this with 24 on the range. It worked. I just didn't think it was efficient and safe. Too many people. Well, and I would say it had nothing to do with the SIRT, why we stopped doing it. It had everything to do with everything we do revolves around movement offline. and I just needed more room, so I talked him into doing 12 at a time on the range, so that we can do every other lane, so I can have them moving back and forth. And so that really had nothing to do with any of this, of why we went to 12. All right, so for the SIRT dry fire station, when we do recruits, we got a bigger table with more SIRTs. This one is the one that's on the range 24/7. So instructors can bring in people off the street and work on stuff because they have free access to the range. So it's just a couple of my remedial students working on some flashlight stuff. But firearms instructors here, they'll come up. Our protocol on the range after we got the SIRTs is mag out, slide lock back to the rear, physically visually inspect, and then holster it with a slide lock back. It's new for us. We used to never do the slide lock back when we walked off the line. But because of the SIRT and exchanging with tables and doing different dry drills, we always do slide lock back now. Just so that if I take it out, I'm not locking the slide, because that's one sound I don't want to hear when my back's to them on the range. So everything's slide lock back to the rear. So anything that we're working on the range, I would occasionally turn around and look, and if I got students that go back and they go, we're working barricade or whatever, flashlight, they'll go back and talk to the instructor, put the barricade up, and you can see them working on it in the back. And they're using that downtime because everybody's been on the range goes, oh shit, time to go. So we're getting more training because of the downtime in the back of the range, and they're getting better in between relays. And you can watch them get better in between relays. This particular thing is controversial for a lot of firearms instructors that I've talked to. But what we found with the proper protocols, we haven't had a single issue with it.
So that I can understand, you've got some live fire exercises going on, and at the back of the range, people are going to the station.
And we'll have a picture here later, but they'll be shooting here, and SIRT station going on here with a firearms instructor in back.
What's your ratio usually, instructor to student, when you do that?
Depends on what we're doing and where we are in the academy. First 2 days of academy, it's a 1-to-2 ratio. But after that, we'll start to lax it to, because of the table and stuff, 1-to-3 or 4.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of anal.
Yeah.
No. No.
I think you had something to
Yeah. It's there. And no, I didn't say asshole. I said anal. This was a, yeah. Exchange table. This is right behind the firing line. Say we're working, this is on the 10, so we're working 7 and in for what we're doing here. These recruits exchanges are live guns. They all have SIRTs on. Early on, we'll make a horseshoe all around the outer perimeters, just doing dry fire they'll find something on their brick, and we'll just do some warm-up draws, warm-up trigger control, and working with the recruits with that. This is how the table lies out. Each one has, and I think is in that packet, lane 1, lane 2, whatever lanes we're using, it's written right on that piece of paper so that they know where they're coming back to the right guns and everything else. And then that's our little disclaimer that I had there on the screen of no live weapons, or loaded weapons, sorry. Just what, a little tape, no, just, yeah, that thing, that little labeler. Yeah, I just, OPD 01, 02, all the way up to, we only have 20, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got a few more coming now.